Hey everyone, and welcome to the team. I am absolutely thrilled to be your guide today. As a professional Microsoft Azure SQL Database expert, I've spent literally years managing massive database environments, and today I'm giving you a high-level architectural overview. Think of this as your pre-flight briefing. This explainer is specifically designed to get you completely prepped before you dive into your hands-on labs. We're going to map out exactly how we automate our Azure SQL maintenance, so when you finally have your hands on the keyboard later, you'll know exactly why you're taking each step. Okay, let's dive right in.
So let's start with the universal truth in our industry. Are you just totally exhausted by manual database maintenance? Because I definitely am. Fragmented indexes, they're like the silent performance killers of any SQL database. But constantly monitoring and, manually running index rebuilds or reorganizations? No way. That is a tedious, soul-crushing task that just eats up hours of your week. As database administrators, our time is way better spent on optimization and architecture, not acting as manual human task schedulers. And that brings us right to your specific mission for the upcoming lab. Straight from the documentation, your scenario is exactly this. You've been hired as a senior database administrator to help automate day-to-day operations. Specifically, you need to make sure the AdventureWorks databases are running at absolute peak performance. AdventureWorks relies heavily on SqlServer, and they desperately need a reliable, automated way to handle index defragmentation. That is the exact problem we are solving today.
Take a look at the official lab guide for deploying an automation runbook to automatically rebuild those indexes. You're going to become really familiar with this document. This explainer right now is your strategic roadmap. I'm going to walk you through the logic and the architecture of this whole deployment, so that when you execute these exact steps in your lab environment, you'll understand the deeper why behind the how. All right, here is our flight plan for today. We'll quickly cover prepping your environment, setting up automation accounts, configuring your assets, actually building the runbook, putting it all on autopilot with scheduling, and finally, getting everything cleaned up. So, let's dive right into Phase 1, prepping your environment.
Before we can automate a single thing, we need a database to maintain, right? In your hands-on lab, your very first task is setting up this foundational Azure infrastructure. You'll start by opening Visual Studio Code and cloning the lab files straight from GitHub. Next up, you just run the as login command to connect to your Azure environment. And finally, you'll execute this beautifully pre-written PowerShell script called deploy-SQLDatabase.ps1. This script does all the heavy lifting. It automatically builds out a resource group, provisions an Azure SQL Server, and creates the AdventureWorks LT database. Its literal infrastructure as code in action.
Now here is an absolutely crucial point I want to highlight, because this trips up so many new DBAs during the setup phase. It's the password generation. The script will generate a password for your SQL admin account, or you can pass one in via a parameter. But listen closely. Azure SQL has incredibly strict password complexity requirements. We're talking at least 12 characters long, and it must contain an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, a number, and a special character. If you don't meet every single one of those criteria, your setup script will fail. Keep this in mind and make absolutely sure you save those generated credentials. You are for sure going to need them later.
All right, moving right along to the second piece of the puzzle, automation accounts.
To put our database maintenance on autopilot, we need a really solid engine, and that engine is Azure Automation. Basically, Azure Automation is a cloud-based service that lets us consistently manage our environments. Think of it like the master command center for our entire index rebuilding operation. It's this secure, centralized hub where we store our scripts, our credentials, and our execution schedules without needing a dedicated virtual machine running 24/7 just to fire off a task. It's incredibly efficient.
Okay, let's transition over to Phase 3, which is configuring assets.
Before we actually write any automation code, we've got to outfit our environment with the right tools. First, you'll navigate to your shiny new Azure SQL database in the portal and open up the query editor. But, and this is a big but, Azure SQL is locked down and secure by default, meaning its firewall blocks outside connections. So step 2 is absolutely critical. You have to add your client IP address to the firewall rules when it prompts you. Once you're safely in, step 3 is running a provided script called USP_AdaptiveIndexDefrag.SQL. This script creates the actual stored procedures in your database that contain the logic for rebuilding and reorganizing those indexes.
Now, inside the automation account itself, we have to configure our assets. In your lab, you'll head over to the Shared Resources section. You see, you can't just run SQL commands right out of the box. PowerShell actually needs to learn the right vocabulary. So you'll browse the gallery and import the SqlServer module. This basically hands your automation account the specific PowerShell commands or CMDlets it desperately needs to talk to your database.
Under those exact same shared resources, you'll also create a credential asset named SqlUser. Now, you might be wondering, why are we doing this? Well, as an Azure SQL expert, I can promise you that hard-coding admin passwords into plain text scripts is just a massive security nightmare. By creating a credential asset, we securely tuck away that complex 12-character password we talked about earlier right inside Azure Automation. Our script will just call this asset by name, keeping your database completely locked down and secure.
Let's shift gears to Phase 4, building the Runbook.
This is where we get to the actual code that's going to do all the heavy lifting for us. In your automation account, you're going to create a brand new PowerShell runbook and name it Index Maintenance. Then we just paste in the provided script snippet. Honestly, this script is elegantly simple, but it is incredibly powerful. You just update the first variable with your specific Azure SQL Server name and then save and publish it. Let's look a little closer at what this script is actually pulling off.
The real magic happens right here with the core command invoke-sqcmd. This is the bridge. First, the script uses Get-AutomationPSCredential to silently and securely fetch that SQLUser password we just stored. Then, invoke-sqlcmd takes that credential, reaches out to your AdventureWorks database, and pulls the trigger on the USP_adaptive index defrag stored procedure we set up earlier. It is just a perfect chain of events securely executing complex T-SQL entirely via PowerShell.
And now for the absolute best part of the whole process. Phase 5, scheduling and autopilot.
4 a.m. This time right here, this represents the pure beauty of automation. In the lab, you're going to set this script to execute at 4 a.m. local time. As a DBA, this means while you are sound asleep in your bed, your database is actively analyzing its own index fragmentation, making smart decisions about whether to rebuild or reorganize, and executing all that maintenance during off-peak hours. You wake up, grab your coffee, and your database is operating at peak performance without you lifting a single finger. The final steps to actually achieve this are beautifully straightforward. Inside your published index maintenance runbook, you just go to Resources, click Add a Schedule, and link it up. You'll name the schedule Daily Index Defrag, set the start time for 4 a.m. the following day, and set the recurrence to every 1 day. Once you hit Create, boom, you've officially built an automated cloud-native maintenance solution.
Finally, we reach Phase 6, cleanup.
Proper lab hygiene is absolutely critical, folks, because this is just a lab environment. We definitely don't want to leave resources running indefinitely, or you're going to rack up some unnecessary Azure charges. The lab document explicitly walks you through how to clean all this up. The easiest method? If you created a dedicated resource group for this lab, just go into the Azure portal, find that resource group, and hit Delete. That wipes out the SQL Server, the database, and the automation account all at once. Always remember to clean up your playground when you're done.
And that, my friends, concludes our pre-flight briefing. You've seen the architecture, you understand the vital security behind the credentials, and you know exactly how Azure Automation triggers those T-SQL procedures. Now it's time for you to jump right into the hands-on lab and build this thing yourself. But as you do, I want you to chew on this final thought. You've automated your indexes, so what are you going to put on autopilot next? Database backups? Performance alerting? The cloud is literally your oyster. Have a blast in the lab, and I will see you in the next explainer.
Hey everyone, in this section of lab DP-300, Azure Database Administrator will go through lab 13, deploy an automation runbook to automatically rebuild indexes. So you joined as a database administrator and you're going to help day-to-day operations. And you want to make the things way of doing using automations. So in this case, we are going to do some kind of run book which will automatically rebuild indexes based on the schedule that we'll provide. So here, very first thing that you need to download all the required files by going through the GitHub URL. I'll pass that GitHub repository link into description section so that you can follow when you do into your own lab setup. So here I have already downloaded all the files. So let me go to those files. And open in a terminal Windows or Windows terminal. And then let's connect to Azure using Azure CLI. So it will open a window for logging into the Azure. So here select that credential. And here it is recommended, not this app only. You can select that one. So it has got the subscription name and subscription ID and tenant name. To select a subscription and tenant, you can press enter without any changing. When that is done, so when you are logged in, now it's for this lab, we are going to create a SQL database using like PowerShell script, which you can get that from by going through the labs setup. And this is the script PS1. And there are some variables like resource group name, location name, admin password, which you can um, modify or update. So let me go to or execute the command. So first is cd change directory to the directory and then execute this PowerShell script. By that time, let me log into Azure portal. So you can go to the resource group. So when script has completed, it will return with the like resource group name, SQL server name, and also see that other informations here, password, for example. So now let's go back to portal. I have already connected to the portal. Now first create an automation account. So search here, automation account. Select that one. Now click, okay, still coming. So click on create button. Then select the subscription, select resource group. Then select automation account name. Let me give a name here, auto account. Select the region. And then we are not changing any other values. Just let's select review plus create. Validation pass, select on create. So it can take few minutes. So let me back when that, oh, okay, it's very quick then. Deployment succeeded. So close that one. So let's go to that, go to resource. So you can see the autumn account details here from the overview page. And now let's connect to an existing Azure SQL database. So let's go back to the database section. So if we go to home and if you go to resource group, you can search from here also SQL. So that is the SQL database Adventure Works LT. Select that one. Now on left side, you can see that there is options query editor preview. So select that and then it will be like asking to authenticate here. So there is a two options, Microsoft Enter Authentication and SQL Authentication. So in this case, I'm using SQL Authentications. Select the username and select the password and then click on Connect. So it's giving a message that your IP address is not allowed to access the server. So let me allow that one. It open a new tab or just click here, allow IP. So successfully updated server firewall rule, then click on Connect. So now it is connected here. So let me close that one. And if we go there, just SQL database level, you can see all those different options available. Let me go to the security. And if I go to that server, and here you can also see the different options available in relate to different activities also. So now let's go back to the database level. And that firewall rule that we applied, we can see that from here also, set server firewall. And you can see that add your client IP address. I can see that it's already added, so I do not need that one, but I'm saying you can add by clicking that one. And then you can see that these options like allow Azure service, and then you need to select that save options. So it will give you that message. Now let me go back and then select that query editor preview window. You can see previous query. Now click here, new query, and get the text from the script that I have downloaded. And so that is under labs. This is under module 13. Open this contents. Copy the text. Go back here and paste it here. So now from this code, remove or delete these two lines, drop like delete these two lines, and then execute that one. And when that complete, you can see that all those procedures have been created. Now we'll configure automation account assets. So in this steps, we are going to do some kind of automation account. So for that, on the top level, search for automation and select that automation accounts and select the account that we created before. Collapse these options and then under shared resources, select modules, and then now on the top section you can see the browse gallery. Select that one, and here search for SQL Server. So you can see that SQL Server. So select that one, and you can see that it is getting like all those different common list here. It's a PowerShell module and it has got many contents. So then select button, press that select button. Now you can see that add a module page. Here, upload a module file and also the PowerShell module file. And down below, there is a runtime versions. So this runtime version, select the latest versions available. So in this case, that is 7.2. And after that, I'm taking the default value browse from gallery, and this one is SQL Server. And then click on import. So import is started, import in progress. Here we see. So this is ultimately importing all those PowerShell module into the automation account that I created. So now we will need to create an account to securely sign in to database. So for that, let's go to that shared resources, and you can see that there is a option for credential. So select that one, credential, and here we are going to add a credential for that. So select that, add a credential, and give a credential name. We are giving SQL user, then give a username, that is username, SQL admin, then give a password, then confirm password, and then click on create button. So a new credential has been created. You can see that username, and it has been created here. Now, next we are going to create a PowerShell runbook. So for that, let me go back to database section like Adventure Works, and put a note that the server name that we need. So let me duplicate this page. Here search for automation and select that automation accounts. Then select this auto account. Now here is that the process automation, expand that one. And here you can see the options Runbook, jobs, hybrid working groups. So select that Runbooks. And we are going to create a Runbook. So select that create a Runbook. And give a Runbook name. So we are doing this automation escape for index. So give a meaningful name like index maintenance. And then next select the Runbook type. In my case, Runbook type is PowerShell. And then select the Runbook runtime version. We are selecting the latest one, which is 7.2. And then we're not giving tag for this lab purpose. Then select that review plus create. And when validation pass, select create button. So we can see that new Runbook created. When Runbook created, we need to copy the code, PowerShell code. So by going through here, we can see that it's going to that database, then its credential it's getting for that user we created, and then it's SQL output where it is actually executing a command by giving ID password and running that. You can see that it's a query, it's running that one. This is based on the procedure that we stored procedure that we created. User stored procedure and stored procedure name. Now here, these are the SQL server name. So get the SQL server name. Now click save button because we are going to schedule the job. When that's successfully saved, you can see that save button is disabled. Now click publish to publish this one and publish Runbook giving a message. So select yes here to confirm the publish action. So Runbook is published now. Now we are going to create or a scheduler or schedule for a Runbook. Now let's go to the resources. And you can see that under resources, there is a job, schedules, and webhook. So we are going to select that schedule and then click on add a schedule. Now there are the options like schedule, link a schedule to your Runbook or parameter and run settings. So we'll do link a schedule to Runbook. Then click here add a schedule. So here we need to give the name. Let's give a name. Daily index defragmentation. Give a stats time like you can give next day and give a time. For this task, we are going to select 4 a.m. So normally when system is not busy, then select the time zone. Recurrence options, then how long that will recur, and you can set up a expiration for that one, and then select create. So you can see that schedule has been created. So this is the job that we have just created, it will run that on. And if you go there, you can get the details on that, and you can modify by going through edit options, edit in portal, or you can also use code it string, and you can also execute this command to start that job. So that's it for this lab. If you have any questions, please add that into comment sections. Otherwise, see you into next lab. Thank you.